All right, I'd like to call the regular monthly meeting of January 20th, 2022 order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Moldavsky? Here. Mr. Barbarella?
Here.
Mrs. Spadalovich?
Present.
Mr. Ifkin?
Here.
Mrs. Mayhem?
Present.
Ms. Quackenbush?
Here.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Here.
Mrs. Kendall?
Present.
And Mr. Banta.
Here. Regular monthly meeting of June 20, 2022. Sunshine thing. New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and attend meetings of public bodies of which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Fair Lawn Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof distributed to the persons on the approved list, posted in the Board of Education Administrative Office, sent to the Bergen Record and the Star Ledger. The announcement posting for the regular monthly meeting, along with the date, time, and place thereof, was distributed on January 18, 2021. Items discussed during the closed work session may include personnel matters, student matters, legal matters, negotiations, and/or grievances and tactics and techniques utilized in protecting public safety and property. Results of these discussions will be made public as soon as possible. As per Governor Murphy's Executive Order 251, masks must be worn the entire time in the building for the duration of the meeting, and while speaking, proper PPE is available. Could you join in the flag salute, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you may or may not know, we have a brand new feature this month's meeting, and it is the call-in feature for those of you at home. There was a sign-up which closed at 6:30 this afternoon, this evening, and if you're on that feature, if you're on the computer, you can use your raise your hand feature. If you are on your phone, you have to hit *9. It will show up on the business administrator's computer, and you will be called on. And at this time, turn the meeting over to the superintendent.
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me okay? Thank you very much, Mr. Banta. Before we get started with our meeting and jump into our agenda items tonight, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the loss that we had this week in Fairlawn High School. Peter Tisco was one of our sophomore students at Fairlawn High School, a member of our community, started out at TJ Middle School, and then went on to Fairlawn High School, who passed away after a long battle of cancer. The Tisco family is hurting right now, just as much as our whole community is. But as we always do in Fairlawn, our community rallies around when somebody is hurting, and that's one of the things that we do best. I ask that you keep the Tisco family in your thoughts and prayers. Peter wasn't just a student. Peter was part of our high school family. Peter was on our swim team. I just cannot even believe, I was saying to Mr. Gorski, how many swim medals Peter had. It was just unbelievable. It was a tough week for sure, and I ask that you keep this family in your thoughts and prayers. At this time, I'm going to ask if we could do a moment of silence on behalf of Peter. Thank you. Couple other comments before we move on to our audit presentation by our auditor Heidi from the Zavagia auditing firm. Before we go there, I want to let you know that our COVID numbers for Fairlawn community are moving in the right direction as a community at large, as well as in our schools. We know that the holiday surge was exactly that, the surge, and our numbers were a little alarming as we came back, but we managed to push through, and every day the numbers continue to improve, and you're seeing that nationwide as well as here in Fairlawn. So if you see our daily numbers that are posted or sent home on a daily basis, you are seeing a constant decrease on a daily basis. So it's really good news that you're seeing the numbers drop, as well as the availability in testing has become more and more available, so you're not seeing long wait times for PCR tests anymore like we were seeing over the break. So things are moving in the right direction. I'm not getting ahead of myself. I'm cautiously optimistic, but let's all just pray that this is behind us now at this point, and hopefully we can move forward. And, I did hear Governor Murphy say today that, hopefully by the end of the school year, maybe we'll be in a meeting without wearing these anymore. But don't worry, don't twist my words here, we're not getting rid of masks, but at some point, Governor Murphy did say that today, so I'll twist his words for you. The school calendar is on our agenda tonight. The school calendar is up for a vote. You will notice in the school calendar that there was a lot of feedback that was solicited from that. And the feedback solicited is that the February break will be shortened to give off Election Day as well as Diwali. So there's going to be a couple other days off throughout the school year and keeping the Friday, Monday, Tuesday for February break. So it'll be a really long weekend. So we'll still have a decent February break, but now giving off for Diwali as well as for Election Day. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to our business administrator and Heidi.
I'll just turn it over to Heidi.
Nice job, John. I might drop it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So John would have handed out a 3-page summary of the financial results. I summarized what's in what I call the Big Blue Book or the CAFR, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have as I go along. So on the first page of the handout, we have the general fund at the top, which is the main operating fund of the district, where the bulk of the instructional, administrative support services, capital outlay, transportation, and custodial services are expended. So the general fund is supported by 3 different types of revenue. The first is the local revenue, which is principally your local tax levy. The final budget for local revenue was $95.3 million, the actual $93.8 million. There was a deficit of slightly under $1.5 million, and that was due primarily to a shortfall in other restricted miscellaneous revenue of $1.9 million, and that was due primarily to the child and adult programs are very much limited during that COVID pandemic. And this was offset by an excess in tuition revenue from other LEAs of a little under $202,000 and an excess in unrestricted miscellaneous revenue of $241,000. Then we have state revenue or state aid. The actual revenue budgeted was $8.2 million. Actual revenue that came in was $11.4. There was an excess of $3.18 million, and that was due to a homeless tuition reimbursement, non-public transportation aid, and an excess in extraordinary aid. And then finally, we have federal revenue budgeted at $66,000, actual $55,000, and there was a shortfall of a little under $11,000. And that is the federal revenues from the Medicaid assistance program we're sending. So overall, there was an excess in revenue of $1.672 million. Then we have expenditures, appropriations, the final budget including the prior encumbrances, and those encumbrances are purchase orders which are placed at the end of the year for goods or services that aren't received or rendered as of the end of the year. So what happens is they roll into next year's budget. So it was the final budget includes the adopted budget plus those prior encumbrances, that being $119 million. The actual expenditures a little under $100 million. So $19 million unexpended. Included in that $19 million, though, is $5.8 million encumbrance, current year encumbrances, so encumbrances at the end of the year. And then truly unexpended was $13.468 million. Then right under that, we have a recap of fund balance for the year. Started with $33.1 million, withdrew $600,000 from the capital reserve during the budget process to support debt service. Withdrew also from the budget $2.276 million from capital reserve. Add in budgeted interest on the capital reserve of $2,000. There was a board resolution to withdraw $1.245 million from the maintenance reserve, and that was to offset the loss of state aid. The district used $1 million of the prior surplus to support the budget. We've liquidated the prior encumbrances of $10.5 million, added in the excess revenue of $1.672 from above, and the unexpended budget balances of $19 million, and ended the year with general fund balance of $38.4 million. If you could kindly turn to the second page, I do like to go over the different components of general fund balance, because a bulk of those funds are restricted or set aside for specific purposes. And what I have on this page is I have the ending balances at 6/30/21 and 6/30/20. So it shows the 2 years and the increase or decrease. So first we have the capital reserve. The capital reserve can be used for the local share of projects in the long-range facility plan. Very good to have money in a capital reserve because it's very difficult sometimes to do capital projects within the 2% cap without having funds in capital reserve. So the capital reserve ended the year with $19.256 million. So that was an increase of a little over $5 million, and the $5 million increase was due to a year-end transfer of $7.9 million. The board has the ability to deposit funds at year-end into the various reserves. Then there was interest of a little under $33,000, and then as I mentioned on the previous page, withdrew $600,000 for debt service purposes and $2.276 million as a budgeted withdrawal for capital projects. Maintenance reserve, also very good reserve to have, especially districts been using that a lot for COVID purposes. The maintenance reserve ended the year with $3.89 million, an increase of $1.89 million. Maintenance reserve can be used for maintenance projects as detailed in the comprehensive maintenance plan. The increase in the maintenance reserve was due to the year-end deposit of $3.124 million and interest less the withdrawal of $1.245 million. One of the other reserves the district has is an emergency reserve. Ended the year with a little under $603,000, an increase of $103,000, $100,000 year-end deposit, and some interest. The emergency reserve can be used for an increase in health benefits over 4%, as well as security improvements, both during the budget process. Otherwise, it's a little more complicated to withdraw money from the emergency reserve because you need to go to the Commissioner of Education, and they will grant a withdrawal from the emergency reserve for an expenditure that they deem thorough and efficient education, and it can't be due to poor planning on the part of the district. At one point, it was very difficult to withdraw money from the emergency reserve, though it does seem as though Department of Education is being a little more flexible. And then as part of the GASB 84 implementation, the unemployment compensation account, which used to be accounted for in the fiduciary funds, and they went away with GASB 84, are now part of the general fund. The unemployment compensation reserve is used to pay unemployment claims, ended the year with $875,000. Then, as I mentioned on the prior page, there was $5.87 million in encumbrances. Those are the purchase orders placed before the end of the year, like I said, for goods and services, and they're not received or rendered as of the end of the year. So what happens is they get added into the fiscal year 22 budget. Then, like in fiscal year 21, in 22, you're using $1 million to offset the budget. And then unassigned. What happened is there was a law that was approved where in the past, probably like 8-10 years, the unassigned max was 2%, but they increased that for 2 years to 4%. So I did break out the 2% and the amount that's above the 2% to 4%. So your total unassigned, and I'll go over that calculation on the next page, is $6.962 million, but I wanted to show you that, the 2% is at the $4 million, and then above that is the $1.986 million. So total fund balance, $38.458 million. I think the district is in a strong financial condition. It's very wise to have money in the capital maintenance and emergency reserves. I did want to point out, though, with the capital reserve, at 6/30/21, the ending balance was $19.256 million. But as part of the 22 budget, as I have on the bottom of the page, you withdrew some funds. So as of 7/1/21, that 19.256 million was reduced by 4.86 million for use in the 22 budget for capital projects, and then an additional 600,000 which was withdrawn in 22 for the debt service. Then if we go to the third page, we go over the calculation of excess surplus. It's simply a mathematical calculation where we take the total general fund expenditures, the 99 million, we times that times 4%, which calculates to 3.972 million. Then they allow you to add in any excess non-public transportation or extraordinary aid that you received above the amount that you budgeted, and that was the 2.99 million. So if you take the 3.972 million, add the 2.990 million, it comes to the 6,962,000. So then it's simply a calculation to see if you have excess surplus. So you take the 38.4 million, subtract out the money that we talked about on the prior pages that have been set aside or reserved, the encumbrances, the capital reserve, the maintenance reserve, the emergency reserve, the unemployment, and the amount assigned. And that comes down to 6.962 million. And since they're the exact same amount, the maximum and the actual calculated, you don't have any excess surplus. So if you'd be kind enough to turn back to the first page at the bottom, I'd like to go over another fund that you have. You have an enterprise fund, the food service fund. An enterprise fund is supposed to act as a business type activity, so it means it's supposed to be self-supporting. The enterprise fund increased its net position, which is a similar terms of fund balance, by 626,000 to 1.139 million at the end of the year. That also is in strong financial condition, and the increase was due principally to the participation of the district in the seamless summer option, where the students were allowed to have free lunch. And then we have a couple of long-term liabilities. First, you have serial bonds. As of 6/30/21 of 42.68 million maturing in fiscal year 43. Compensated absences, which is an estimate of the sick and vacation time that would be due to the staff, which is budgeted and paid out in the year in which staff retires. And then you have 21.2 million in that pension liability in the PRS pension system. Those employees in the PRS pension liability system would be your secretaries, your aides, custodians, and bus drivers. And then just like the serial bonds and the compensated absences, you budget and pay the amount that's due. And then I also wanted to point out that the district did refund their serial bonds, certain issues, 3 issues in September 21, and they will have a savings of a little over $1 million over the life of their funding bonds. So excellent financial condition. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Board members, questions? Rita,
I was looking at the.
could you talk in the microphone, please?
I'm sorry, I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was looking at page 4 of the booklet you
Sure,
provided.
yes.
us. Can you explain to me the travel expense and reimbursement policy? You said the board approves it once and then it goes. Can you explain to me how it actually works?
So we're required to test the expenses for travel by the Department of Education. So we test the sample, we make sure the district has a policy, and then make sure those expenses are in accordance with the policy. So if someone wants to go for, say, a professional development event, which would be considered a travel expense, they would need to get the approval of the superintendent and then the board. And then they need to do what they call like a post-travel report. And then we would check, like I said, a sample of those.
So every employee that gets travel reimbursement must provide some kind of travel paper saying, I went to A to B and C to E.
Yeah, depending on what it is, you know, obviously a lot of the stuff now is just virtual, so it would be just like a support for the expense, like if you did a webinar, if you actually traveled someplace and there was travel involved, then you would have to have documentation for support of that reimbursement for the actual traveling there. And then there's supposed to be a brief report that describes the purpose of the event and the value provided to the district.
Okay, so my question is, did you audit the travel reimbursement provision contained in the non-bargaining employee contract? Do they comply with the law? Did you look at that? That's from school to school, not travel between to a workshop.
We did a sample of them. To be honest, I don't know exactly which ones we tested. We tested a small sample and we didn't have any issues with what we looked at.
So, I just want to make sure that any time an employee travels and gets travel reimbursement, they have to provide some paperwork, correct? Of some sort, to prove their mileage.
Yes,
And that's the state law.
that's the state law, but also you have your own travel policy and we check and make sure that you followed your own policy.
By any chance, do you know what our where our travel policy is? Our policy?
Rita, if you have a question about specifics about the report, not our policies, because that's not really her bailiwick.
One more thing, you said you're in the financial position. Our district, our size, how much do you think is appropriate for us to have in a reserve fund? Like, you said you're in good shape. What is considered
Any particular reserve?
the 5-year ones, the general ones? You said?
The unassigned?
I'm sorry. The one you said that was the capital reserve. I'm
The
sorry.
capital reserve?
Yeah.
We check to make sure that that is supported by the projects in your long-range facility plan. So as long as you have a list of projects where the local share is at least 19 million, that's our responsibility to check that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So actually, I'm going to go and talk about the little grade book right now. I'm very pleased to report there was one minor recommendation that has already been resolved. And if you actually have a copy of it, I will refer to the page. If you look on page 7, it has to do with the DRTRS report for pupil transportation. During our testing, we noted that there were certain students that had been reported as special needs private, who should have been reported as special needs public. Spoke with the district, and just like, I must say, I've been very, very impressed. Everybody, John and his staff are amazing. They do a great job. The records were in great condition, and they addressed this right away, and it was corrected for the DRTRS for this year. And then we also included a couple of management suggestions. It starts on the bottom of page 7. And the first one has to do with, I'm sorry.
No, I was tapping.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to make
Continue,
sure
I'm
you
sorry.
have a question, sorry. Okay, the first one is just kind of an update about the different GASB standards that are coming out. We like to keep you updated on that. So for fiscal year 22, GASB 87, which is on leases, and that will it won't affect your day-to-day operations, but the presentation of leases in the report will be very different. And then we do include, and that's one that we include in all our district's reports. The second one has to do with COVID-19 federal funding. Of course, we looked at the federal grants during our audit. We had no concerns with the way that they were expended or reported, but they're going to be under a lot of scrutiny. So we just thought we would strongly suggest that the districts make sure that they use the correct procurement requirements. With the federal grants, sometimes the federal procurement requirements are stricter than the state, and sometimes, depending on the level of expenditures, the state could be stricter, sometimes the federal could be stricter. And we know that they're coming out and going to be doing at least a desk review of a lot of districts, and they're very tough. So we also want to make sure that districts have all the necessary policies in place, and that the funds are accounted for in the correct account. Like I said, we had no concerns with what the district did for those grants. There's new funding in the current year. And then the other one we had was on sick and vacation leave. Once again, we didn't notice anything, but we're not attorneys. It's been in the news. Sick and vacation leave under some scrutiny, so we just want to make sure that districts look and make sure that's in compliance with the state statutes on sick and vacation leave. And then another item is confirming orders. This is something that gets picked up a lot when the state comes out and does grant reviews. It's where you have a purchase order where the purchase order date is after the invoice date. We noticed a few of those, but addressed it with administration and feel that it's been resolved for fiscal year '22. And then the final item has to do with surety bond coverage. There is only a required calculation and bond for the treasury school monies, but the position of the treasury school monies has changed over time, where a lot of the duties that the treasury school monies used to do are now performed by the business administrator. So we just suggested that the level of the bond of the treasurer and the business administrator be the same, and that's already been addressed for fiscal year '22. Like I said, we were so impressed. The records were in excellent condition. Everyone was very helpful. I know when there's a change in auditors, you know, and we were asking for things maybe that hadn't been asked before. So we really appreciate everybody's patience, and we really enjoyed working with John and his staff. Can I answer any specific questions?
Thank you. Any other board members, any questions? No? No, I think we're good.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Nice job, John, in the business office.
I want to give credit, so I want to thank Pat and everyone who worked for me. This really wasn't my audit.
Take credit. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Not of the auditor now.
Before we jump into public comments, if you don't mind, on our smart board here, you will see our Governor Educator of the Year recipients for Fairlawn. We are happy and proud of our staff. Each building picks one Educator of the Year and one Ed Specialist of the Year. And I'd like to read off those names and then give them a round of applause at the end. Fairlawn High School is Gina Vantuno and Tori Russo, who is our transition coordinator. Edison School is Matt Moore and Scott Shansky. Forest School, Brittany Dakotas and Ashley Schwartz. Lincrest, Ellen Jubel and Tara Zweig. Mills, Jessica Spasica and Susan Brosnick. At Warren Point, Deanna Kelly and Melissa O'Carroll. Westmoreland School, Lindsay Bonifetti and Kathy Lang. At Bradburn School, Melissa Cusimano and Christine Murphy. At Memorial Middle School, Lisa Levchek and Arlene Mitchell. And at Thomas Jefferson Middle School, Pam Polster and Angela Levitan.
Thank you, Nick. And congratulations to all the educators who have been nominated. Very, very good honor. Okay, at this time, we're going to open the floor up to questions from the audience. First, we'll do the people that are present, then we will do the call-ins, and then we will do any Google Forms, which is open. Okay, so members of the audience, first part is just on the agenda items. So if you have any agenda items you'd like to ask a question about or make a comment about, please just step up to the podium, state your name, your street, but not your house number, and direct all your comments to the chair, please. Anyone?
Christine Weinstein, Burbank Street. You answered my question about the calendar, Mr. Garcia. Thank you, about February break. Is there any dates yet for ESY? Has anything been discussed about ESY?
No.
No dates. Okay.
Have some, but they'll come up soon.
Okay. And congratulations, once again, congratulations to all the winners. See a lot of familiar names up there. Very excited because I work with a lot of them. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Hello, Crystal
Hello.
Lawrence, Moreland Avenue. So I missed the first part, you may have already gone over this, but for the calendar, I'm wondering what the decision was around honoring Juneteenth for the school calendar?
The calendar that is being presented tonight does not include Juneteenth as a holiday.
Correct. Were there considerations for it? Is there a rationale or reasoning behind it? I know a lot of other districts have adopted today.
Nick, you want to?
Yeah, sure. So, as we all know, there's a certain amount of days in the school year. And, with the calendar, every year, we're always looking to make changes, to assess, to look at, holidays and days off. One of the Juneteenth just becoming a new federal holiday, correct? I believe this last June, actually. I think it was the day before it actually became a federal holiday. And one of the things historically, Fairmont always had a long February break. So in looking at the holidays and the days off, we were kind of working with however many days we had. And Juneteenth was not that it wasn't given consideration, because it was given consideration, but this is a process where many stakeholders get involved, including the association. And, the Wally was one that was, given consideration for many years now. That was added to the calendar as well as Election Day for security reasons. But Juneteenth is something that's always up for dialogue and debate. And I don't want to say debate in a bad way. I mean it in a very positive way for a healthy dialogue. It is something that's always on the table for conversation. So this calendar is not voted on yet. And we've seen conversations like this happen in public before. So this is just a draft up for a vote, but I appreciate the comment and the question about it. But it's not, it was something that was tossed around and still is given consideration. So.
Right, and the public, do we have a vote in the process or just voted on by the board?
It is just voted on by the board. Yeah. Juneteenth also falls, it's our last week of school, and we have graduation. I believe it may have fell on a final exam day. There were just some obstacles with it this year, the way it fell. That wasn't the reason for why it was not on the calendar, or was it? We just look at many different drafts of the calendar, and every year the calendar seems to evolve. Like I said, from a calendar that several years ago, actually, I think maybe before, right, when I came to Fairlawn, I'm not even sure if we were all for Martin Luther King Day at that time. It may have been a service learning day. And then, we decided at that time that we decided to close schools for Martin Luther King Day. Then we had February week, and we never closed for Election Day unless it was a presidential election or Diwali. So as you can see, the calendar always evolves. So that's still up for discussion by all means.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience on the agenda?
So I just want to say thank you for,
Just state your name, please.
oh, sorry, Lisa Yorman.
Yeah, I know who you are.
I know.
Everybody knows.
Lisa Yorman, Nottingham Road. I want to just say thank you for putting Election Day as an off day for students. I think that's what's really needed and where we are in the political scene today. I go through Radburn School to vote. I've never seen an officer there, which always bothered me that the kids were in school and there were people that were coming in and out of the gym. So I'm happy to see that that's been added to the calendar. Teachers of the Year, I've been out of the school system with my kids for 10 years already, but there were a couple names that were listed on there, one of which was my son's aide and one of my son's friends from his class. And I commend not only them, and I'm not going to name them individually, but I commend everybody that has been named Teacher of the Year or in the special ed field as well. I have one more question, and it regards what's the difference between a stipend and additional compensation? Because when I read the meaning of stipend, it doesn't quite match what I'm reading in.
Can you tell me what agenda item you're speaking about?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple.
Okay, so
Additional compensation was listed under P5. And stipend that I found was F. Frank 7C Charlie.
You have a page number?
Oh,
I got it.
oh,
25 to 21.
21, 33. And there's one more. And on page 24, P5, F. Frank. So when I kind of looked up I can understand additional compensation, but when I looked up what a stipend was, I saw, sorry.
I believe, would you like me to answer? or-
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
yep.
So I believe what you're referring to, the extra additional compensation is for teachers who are teaching a 6th period to cover a class. That's what the additional compensation is, because they have a teaching load, and then we're asking them if maybe somebody is out on maternity or FMLA, and we can't, we divvy up their subjects with our teachers, so they get additional compensation. It's called a 6th period. It's contractual. The stipend that you're referring to is the bullying specialist, or harassment, intimidation, and bullying specialist. That's also contractual, where they receive a $500 stipend for taking on that extra duty as the anti-bullying specialist.
Because
The stipend lasts all year, and the instructional, the 6th period, could be a month, could be the whole year, could be 3 months, could be 10 days.
right, now I don't know whether this is just in, a Board of Education, that it's different than, where I got the dictionary definition of a stipend. And it just says a stipend is a fixed amount of money provided to people pursuing unpaid work to help offset expenses such as housing and food. A stipend may exempt a person partially or entirely from waged or salary employment. And then it goes on, who receives a stipend. Stipends are provided to those ineligible to receive regular salary or wage in return for their services. Researchers, grad students, clergy, interns, and apprentices are common recipients. Normal to receiving a stipend, the job must focus on training and learning, and training must primarily benefit the recipient rather than the employer. From internships and apprenticeships, an employer may not promise the recipient a job at the end of the training or have them do work in place of a regular employee. So that's like a little bit opposite of what it says. So,
I'll take that feedback and share it with the attorneys when we go through negotiation.
Thank
This
you.
is directly related to the contract, but thank you for pointing that out.
appreciate it, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank you. Any other audience members like to speak on the agenda?
Craig Miller, Brownfield Terrace. Just a quick question. Is there any portion of this meeting for comments outside of the agenda?
Yes. After we do the agenda, we will go back to the public to other business, anything to do with the schools. You can
Because I was reading this and totally confused.
Yeah, so we'll, as soon as we're done, we'll go round robin back again. All right, anyone else in the audience? Okay, John, you have people in the,
I do.
okay.
Jasmine, Forrest, Milan. Mrs. Flores Milan, you are up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jasmine Flores-Milan, Brookside Avenue. I'm glad to hear about some of the changes being made to the calendar. Those are well warranted and kind of overdue. I agree with some of the earlier comments being made with regards to security of our kids during election day and all the movement that's going on. So, and observe as well. Those are, great changes that are made. But I also did want to raise the question of Juneteenth, and I did hear another attendee make a comment about that, and I'm glad to hear that there is some debate about that, considering I believe it's Ridgewood and Paramus, they do have it on the calendar, and although it fell on Sunday this year, it's somewhat being observed and acknowledged. And, I would like the district to possibly at least consider that. I've lived in Fair Lawn since 1989. I came through the school district from Mills, TJ, the high school, and now my kids are attending the school. And I do recall when MLK wasn't observed, but back when I was in New York, it was. So that created questions in my mind, naturally, like why does New York City observe it and all the other holidays that we observe here, but they don't observe MLK Day here? And eventually we did change progress. Likewise with Juneteenth, given how diverse our town has grown, I believe that does deserve more thoughtful consideration. And perhaps we make that change sooner rather than later. And that was pretty much it. Again, given the diversity of our town and making sure that we all somewhat feel represented in how long it did take for MLK to become an observed holiday in town, in the school district. I hope the district does give it more consideration regarding Juneteenth. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for what you do, and congratulations to all of the Governor of the Year, Teacher of the Year awards as well. Have a great evening. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Okay, no one else. All right, do you have any on Google?
There's one question in here, but they did not put their first or last name or municipality of residence.
Okay, well, that's required, so. Okay, Julie.
So,
That's a good trick. It's right out.
so I wanted to congratulate all of the Governor's Teacher of the Year and the Education Specialist of the Year. I always love seeing that it's not just our teachers who are recognized, but all the other staff and educators in our district that are recognized for their hard work as well. I did want to share my own feelings about Juneteenth, which is that I too agree that it needs to be recognized. I do understand that we have some time constraints, so thank you to our community members who did bring it up. I would like to, at the very least, ask the board to consider identifying it in our calendar for both this year and next year, and at the very least to start for the 22-23 calendar, because it is what is on the agenda tonight, that we identify it as a service learning day and ensure that all of our students and our community understand the background history on Juneteenth and why we are serving our community, and if we could somehow find a connection with our equity team to ensure that they are working alongside our educators to provide lessons, curriculum, support services, so that our teachers are armed with the best course of action and information, so all of our students are educated in the best way possible. And then finally, I just wanted to share my own condolences for the loss of our student and let our community know that may his memory serve as a blessing.
Thank you, Joe. Mike?
I too would like to comment on the Juneteenth and the comments that were made. I always like the fact that when we did have school for Dr. Martin Luther King Day, that we did, on our level, expect that to be a service learning day. And now that we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Day with the day off of school, I have no problem at all. Matter of fact, I would also agree that Juneteenth should be a service learning day, so that the students, I'm a history teacher, so the students understand the history of Juneteenth and the whole struggle. And I think it would go far. And I also agree with Julie on that the best place for this to begin would be our equity team, and it would be a good challenge for the equity team to come up with proper activities for each grade. So I definitely agree. I want to, so that's on that. I want to share Julie and Nick's condolences to Peter's family and the students of Fairlawn High School, quite frankly. I had a chance to go over to the wake today, and I spoke to his parents, and they couldn't thank enough what the high school and the administration have done for them, always being open and supporting them as they're going through this difficult time that no parent should have to go through. So I send my condolences, and I sent the condolences of the board. I hope no one minds, but I sent my condolences of the board to the parents when I was there. I want to congratulate the retirees. Yeah, it's not, I guess there's going to be a lot more next month, because usually January they start to come in. But I want to say that even with there only being 3 retirees, that's 70, 83 years, 83 years of service at that time. I'm not a math teacher. You know, so it's a big loss. Everybody, you know, when you lose a secretary that's been here for 31 years, and you lose a paraprofessional, or unsung heroes, 26 years, and a maintenance person for 26 years, that's a big loss for the district. And last but not least, I was remiss. First of all, I didn't thank the VFW for their scholarship. And, you know, I saw a great friend of Fairlawn Schools and Fairlawn, and the borough of Fairlawn is the commander of the VFW now, Commander Pastor David G. Bloom. He does so much. And I also want to thank the VFW for money toward the Military Appreciation Monument at the high school, $4,000. Mitchell A's for a donation to our high school varsity baseball team of $1,000. That's incredible. And money from our Friends of Music. Wow. $4,164.27 for music items for K-12 music teachers. So thank you very much. And that is all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mark, you're up.
Thank you. I wanted to also extend my condolences to the Peter family. Peter was an next-door neighbor of mine. He was truly a remarkable and wonderful, respectful child. He's really going to be missed. And he was not only excelling in school academically, but he was also a phenomenal swimmer. So again, he's truly going to be missed. Regarding the calendar, I would like to make a motion, if I can at this time, to remove the calendar from the agenda so that further discussion can take place regarding Juneteenth, and perhaps we can vote on it next month, whether or not we include it.
Well, we haven't, all right, so wait a minute. You
It's on the
agenda.
tonight.
You know, it's on, I'm just trying to think the parliamentary way to do it. Let's get back to that. We'll discuss it in a minute. Let me just think about it. I know they talk about it. So, anything else, Mark?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Any other board members? Rita?
I have a question. Is it board policy or is it customary for public not to be able to ask any questions to the auditor, or is it, I'm just curious, is it board policy?
I don't think we've ever had public members ask the auditor questions, no.
If professionals are coming in, and
Yeah, sure.
this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public. The public's role in this process is to provide comment in the designated terms. That's it. To assist the board in understanding the constituents' perspectives. Presentations are for the benefit of board action, and when a professional comes in to present to the board, it's to inform the board of the professional's actions.
everybody pays taxes, so everybody is in kind of, it's everybody's money in a way. So my question is, why can't everybody ask questions on the audit? Maybe some other things, maybe not as important, but this is everybody's contributing, so why can't they ask questions? That's why I'm not doing it. Because a couple of years ago, when I was not a board member, I was able to ask the question. And I'm just wondering, why has it changed? That's what my question is.
We're not going to be having members of the public ask questions of the auditor.
And that's a board policy?
That's what I'm ruling now. No, that's it.
I just want to clarify, that's all, that going back and forth and clarifying.
Okay. Any other board members? Joe?
Thank you. Just to repeat the sentiment of fellow board members, I definitely think Juneteenth we should be observing in some sort of fashion as a day of interest or an in-service day. To use it as a valuable day to teach students that may not be learning at home the history and significance of this day. So to use that in-class instruction to teach about that. Thank you to the auditors for a very comprehensive report. At times it felt like reading a foreign language. But it is great to see that our district is in a strong financial position. And then just a note that the few items I am abstaining on tonight is simply a matter of the discussions happening before I was a board member. No opposition to these points, but just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Ron?
Yeah, first of all, again, like everybody else said, my condolences to Peter and his family. Nobody ever wants to lose a child. And I cannot imagine what his parents are going through. My thoughts and prayers go out to their family. Also, congratulations to all our teachers. I have the privilege of knowing probably 3/4 of them through my children, and well deserved by every one of them. Also, I agree with my fellow board members. We definitely need to observe Juneteenth in some manner, especially to teach our students what the whole purpose is about it. And lastly, I will be abstaining from some things because I was not at the meetings due to conflict of interest. So I just want everybody to understand that's why I will be abstaining on certain items of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Anybody else that I missed wants to say something? Good. I've got to see if there's a good spot. No? Okay, then now you go, Mike.
I don't know where we are on Mark's motion. I just want to say that I would be hesitant of removing the calendar from the agenda. That doesn't mean that we can't bring it up later on at another time, but the parents are trying to we've gotten emails already, I've gotten people talking to me, parents are trying to make decisions on when they could take vacations, when they could, when we're going to be off of school. So to hold the agenda to discuss whether or not we're going to have Juneteenth off or as a service day of learning or whatever, or what's up, I think would be doing more harm to most of the members of our community who are starting to look to see, they expect to see the calendar at this point, just to see when they have to start school, when, et cetera, and so forth, so.
Thank you, Mike. Any other board members?
Are we going to discuss that motion?
Well, this is my point. If everybody's done talking, this is what I want to do. Let's vote on the agenda. We'll remove the calendar from the agenda. And we'll discuss it afterwards tonight. Because like Mike said, I don't want this to go into February. What?
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, you may.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make a suggestion if possible, but I didn't
No.
With the,
Go ahead, you go. Steal your thunder. Go ahead. Take your thunder.
would the board be comfortable amending right now to at least make it a service and learning day? That way our students who don't have background history and understanding of the historical significance of Juneteenth at the very least, our students K through 12 this year will learn about that, so that if we want to reconvene next year and consider it a day off, then at least our students know what they are serving and how they can better serve their community. So if we can spend some time next year learning about it, and I'm not going to say that I'm not going to bring it back up for this year to learn about it as well, but then we can consider it a possible day off in 23, 24. But my children learn from me, but not everyone else does. So if our students are getting a day off and they have no understanding of the significance of a day, I'd much rather have our children learn about that first and serve their community in school before we give them a day off where they're just going to go to the park or they're going to go to a museum, which is also wonderful, but there's a reason we would serve on this day. And I'd really love our children to learn and our students to learn that first.
So let me see if I got this straight. You want to take this holiday here, the 19th of 2022, and make that in-service learning day?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I would like to do it this year too, but today
Well,
we're talking about the agenda.
Yeah,
What's on the agenda now is 2023.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on. You done, Julie? Go ahead.
Jim, I think you just misspoke. You meant June 19th, 2023.
You're right, it could be 2020, yes. Okay, well, with me, how does everyone feel about changing the calendar to make June 19th in-service learning? Okay.
Well, it wasn't a second.
No, there was never a second.
No, there was no motion. Mark talked about it.
Second, never a second.
Right, all right.
No, it's out.
All right, so, no, because I stopped. All right, so I guess at this point, we need a motion to make June 19th, 2023 in-service learning.
So, point of order, if I may,
Yes.
just to make it as complicated as possible. But I think, and use those legal terms, I think that the administration's happy to amend the calendar proposal tonight, reflecting the will of the board and the suggestions to make that day a service and learning day. And that is what would be voted on tonight.
No motion is necessary.
Right. So the calendar will be
Oh, yeah, you're right.
proposed as
Right,
amended.
because that's really,
Right.
okay.
So we good with that?
Yeah.
Everybody understand?
Okay, yeah, okay. We're not changing, it just has to do with internal, so it's not really hard. Okay, good.
Good.
All right, so we're good with that? All right, thank you. Oh, any other board members who haven't, anybody didn't speak? Or anybody want their second shot? Okay, now, okay, very good. All right. Action items begin on page 5, G1 and G2. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Itkin?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarillo?
Yes, but abstaining on executive closed session for December 16th.
Mrs. Fagnelovich?
Abstain?
Mr. Beldowski?
Abstain on December 16th, yes on everything else.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Spindell?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush?
Yes.
And Mr. Van?
Yes. S1, motion, please.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Spindell?
Yes.
Mr. Beldowski?
Just to clarify, was that all 8 essays? or-
Yes.
I'm sorry, it was S1 through S3, I'm sorry.
Abstain on S3C, yes on everything else.
Mrs. Fagnelovich?
Yes.
Got a question. You said S1, and now we're doing all the S's. I understand about the motion for attorney, but it still has to be stated the council amended.
No, it's not amended. It's not amended. The calendar is not amended. That's Nick and the administration is going to put together a plan to do service learning on that day.
I understand that.
But that doesn't require a motion.
I'm not saying it's a motion, I'm saying that right now I'm voting on the calendar as is. So if I vote on the calendar as is, that's the way the calendar is. So it has to be voted on as amended.
So it should just be amended to, S3 should be amended to include Juneteenth as a service for. That's what we're.
Okay.
And the minutes will reflect that.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because if not, you are putting different words.
Okay. All right, everybody clear on that? My mistake, sorry, Ron. I didn't vote with the,
Everyone's okay who voted on it, that it's going to be. Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Barbarella.
Yes.
Mr. Icken.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
And Mr. Vanta.
Yes. I have a motion for E1 through E3. I got them all this time.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Baldowski.
Yes.
Mr. Spindell.
Yes.
Mr. Barbarella.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mrs. Vegelovich.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Icken.
Yes.
Ms. Mahan.
Yes.
And Mr. Vanta.
Yes. I have a motion for P1 through P6.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yep. Yes, sorry.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Barbarella.
Yes.
Mrs. Vegelovich.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Spindell.
Yes.
Mr. Icken.
Yes.
Mr. Waldowski.
Yes.
And Mr. Vanta.
Yes. Motion for SE1 through SE3.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Icken.
Yes.
Mr. Barbarella.
Yes.
Mr. Spindell.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
Mrs. Vegelovich.
Yes.
Mr. Baldowski.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes.
And Mr. Vanta.
Yes. Motion for C1 and C2.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Vegelovich.
Yes.
Mr. Barbarella.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush. Mr. Spindell.
Yes.
Mr. Waldowski.
Yes.
Mr. Icken.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
And Mr. Vanta.
Yes. I have a motion for F1 through F7.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Vegelovich.
Abstain on F7C and yes for everything else.
Mr. Barbarella.
You go back to the minute, I'll look at
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes.
Mr. Icken.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Spindell.
Yes.
Mr. Waldowski.
Abstain on F7C, yes on everything else.
And,
Yeah, yes.
yes on everything? And Mr. Vanta.
Yes. Okay, that concludes the agenda.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Who chooses and on what rationale is it chosen how the order of these agenda items are placed?
I have no idea.
Because, because it's difficult all the time to find the page that you're working on, because it doesn't go A, B, C, D. It goes A, P, C.
Are you talking about
It's always that way. You got G,
G,
but that's
a general?
personnel. Yeah, but I'm just saying.
I don't know what
Then it's F, and then it's F. It's for finance. But isn't it easier going? A?
No, I know what you're saying, that each one, individual one, like finance should be before general.
Right.
There are districts that do it in alphabetical order. I've seen districts that do finance first. I'm sure you have as well. I've seen it, and we'll discuss it administratively, and we'll talk about it, but,
Well, next is when you should count board time.
yeah, right? You know, if you really want to, but you could just vote on the whole entire thing together. You're doing comments before you're doing comments after. instead of just doing a roll call every single time. I know that we used to actually do comments after every single section, but we don't do that anymore. So we probably shaved 10 minutes off the meeting if we just did a roll call for the whole entire agenda.
I was just wondering why the order is done in the way that it is, rather than alphabetically.
Okay, well, they're gonna look into it when we get back, because there are boards that just say,
Oh, I know.
motion for the whole agenda.
I think we did that one.
Yeah, I think when Elise was president, we did. Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna turn to members of the public on other items. You just step up and do the same way. We will see if there's anybody on John's phone, and then we'll go to Google. Okay, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Craig Miller, Roundabout Terrace. I'm not even sure if this is a board issue or not. I'm a fan of the Fairlawn hockey team, and I attend probably 95% of the games. On January 8th, I received an email in the morning from the service that the school uses to notify of a new game. It was up in Muncie, New York. I went up there thinking the game was on. And I was told by the staff there that the game was canceled last minute, where there was no notification of email or anything that this game was canceled. If it was canceled last minute, according to the email, it said bus was leaving at 4 o'clock. I don't know whose job it is to notify transportation to get a bus, but if it's 4 o'clock and the game's canceled last minute, that's 2 hours for somebody to say, send email out, game canceled. Because it was inclement weather, and it was not fun driving up there to find out, to turn around and come back home again. So I don't, I'm probably the only outside fan that goes to these games, but, I was never aware.
No. Craig, thank you for the feedback. I apologize that you made that commute up there in the weather to find out the hockey game was canceled. I'll work with our high school administration, our athletic department, to put some type of communication out, whether it's on the website, something. Obviously, and I'm not making any excuses, but right now with everything going on with weather, COVID, there's a lot of reasons why things have been canceled last second. Once again, not making excuses by any means. I feel bad that you drove up there, but I will work with the high school administration to look at a way so we can communicate out so that people will know. Perhaps we could use our social media as well. If we find something out, we'll throw it on there as well.
I'm so I can't stand it.
Oh, for everybody else.
Emails and
I'm with you.
text message and emails are more than enough for me. No, I'm not trying to complain. I don't mind making the trip. But, modern technology, we keep talking about technology, somewhere it didn't, unless it was not sent by the company, that's another issue.
Craig, as I've said so many times in this district, if we don't know, we can't help make it better.
Right.
So you bringing that to our attention, of course, we usually probably just think of hockey, like, well, the parents should be notified, not the spectators or fans who may want to be coming because they're a fan. So it's something for us to look into. But no, I didn't take it as a complaint. I appreciate it.
Well, I have to laugh. When I go to the Fairlawn High School website to look at the athletic schedule, I have to go under students. I'm not a student. I can't get a student rate. So
I go to the same thing, to look at the schedule. I never even noticed I was on their students.
yeah, I look at students, okay, athletic schedule, boom. Okay, I'm not a student. So,
Thank you, Craig.
thanks.
Thanks, Craig. Thank you, Craig. Any other members of the audience, other business?
Lisa Yorman, Nottingham Road. So I have a couple of suggestions from, that was in place during my time on the board. And, it just seems that there's no student rep to the Board of Education that, sits in meetings, kind of learns about, the board's business, how to become part of the community.
Asking you shall receive. Next month, we're going to have student reps at our board meeting, we believe, so.
Excellent, all right.
Yeah, you should
Here we go.
Quit on a high note now, Mrs. Sherman.
All right, here we go, next one. Student Dialogue Committee. Used to be a whole bunch of kids would sit around in the high school at night and to be like 3 board members.
You're on a roll now.
Hey,
The new
thank you.
committees will be going out, Mr. Banda, when, the new committee assignments, and there will be a student dialogue rep that's on there. We always had student dialogue for the last however many years. Unfortunately, the only thing that made it difficult was meeting due to COVID. So it kind of did put a halt on a lot of our meetings, but we do have student dialogue as well. And I think Cindy and Ron, you were our 2 reps, I think, over the last couple of years and attended the meetings. But the next,
Yeah, there was like a dozen kids,
Yeah, we
right?
still have it.
Those were the- I mean, I was
We still
on
have
it,
it.
so I just don't remember.
Yeah, we've done it.
It's been a long time. Okay. And then my other, one more thing about the 5-year plan, but let me stick to the volunteerism. We always want to give back to our community. Many of us have lived in Fairlawn, gone to Fairlawn schools, or come back, just come back home is what I like to say. I've been in this town for 48 years. I'm going to be here at least a few more. I get to go to the old Myra Center. But in a way of giving back is to volunteer time, for the kids to volunteer time to give back to the community. I know there's districts, not necessarily, I don't know which districts, but I've heard of districts that say, graduation requirement is you have to do X amount of hours of volunteer time back to your community or back to your, an organization, or like with my kids, they gave back to their medical community. So, what I'd like to be considered by the board would be, there'd be a graduation requirement of having X amount of hours, and it could be as little as 5, it could be 15, it could be 20. That's not my job. That's for somebody else to decide, but there should be some kind of graduation requirement.
So I will just speak to this for a minute. Not as a graduation requirement, but we actually just had dialogue about this probably 2 months ago or so with the borough, as well as with our high school administration and our supervisor of counseling, Mrs. Brenda Gupta. And we talked about doing something, students volunteering and helping out, shoveling snow for the elderly, and doing things around the community of Fairlawn and giving back. Also acknowledging those students for doing that. So that's actually in the works with our guidance department right now. Our relationship, I guess, as part of shared services, to give back to the community as well, and working with our guidance department, so the wheels are in motion for that. But not as, I know that you had asked about a graduation requirement, but not as a graduation requirement, just as being a good, upstanding citizen and student, and so many of them that we currently have.
Yeah, just in addition to that, when you apply for scholarships, a lot of times you're looking for volunteerism. So whether it's a requirement or not a requirement, that's what they're looking for. The same, do you reach out to your community? And if everybody does in a little way, and it could be one snowstorm that you show. I mean, 2 kids came to my door when it snowed last week or the week before, and they said, would you like me to shovel? 30 seconds. Would you like me to shovel? And I said, great. And they shoveled, and they asked for a certain amount. I gave them more because they were just doing it because they wanted to give back to the community. So it was nice.
And that was part of our conversation as well, was making sure that they received the letter of commendation, because we know it would go towards either scholarship or college. And I want to give a shout out to Lisa McClemens, because she works with Fairlawn Access of All Ages, and she's the one who brought it to us, and that's how the relationship started, so thank you.
Okay. And then the one last thing is a 5-year plan. So I go back to the late 70s, and in 1983, 84-ish, there was a whole asbestos remediation in all the schools. And I didn't understand in the 5-year plan why there's still asbestos tile that is in the elementary school, listed specifically in the elementary schools.
I'm not sure. I know that we've been removing asbestos, but my understanding is that the best thing with asbestos, if it's not frying, leave it alone. And I think we might talk about asbestos 4,000, I'm not sure, but I know that we have an inspection regularly, and if anything is fried, then we remove it. So that's probably where the money's in. Yeah, Ron has some expertise in this
You're
area.
not required by law to remove it unless it is damaged. At that point it is, and the reason the remediation was done in 1983, because they said that there was too much asbestos in all buildings, which was a false statement, by the way. If you do not touch asbestos, it's not effective to anybody. People that have dealt with this on there, because they work with it every day, on everything, but it's not required. It's actually in my building still in Wayne. So unless it becomes friable, as Gene said, it's not required to be. And once it is required, there's a whole process there.
My mom had it in her basement, you know, and the whole
Okay, he
process.
said.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's the answer.
okay, can I come back after,
Yeah, you get another 3 minutes. If
okay.
there's-
Wait, I have
We'll
one more.
go, everybody else, you can have a shot.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other members of the audience?
Christine Weinstein, Burbank Street. Just had a few questions. Regarding COVID exposure notification that we get, the letters that we get from our principals and such, they're extremely generic, which I understand why. But it also states in there that if your child had close contact, that you're called. How do they differentiate, or how do they define what's close contact and what's just exposure? Is it just on a school basis, or how is that determined?
Working with the nurses and the health department, and there's questions that are asked, you know, where were you sitting, were you eating, was your mask down for a certain amount of time? So it's pretty individualized with each situation and each scenario where somebody does test positive, but the close contacts will be identified and called by an administrator or a nurse.
Thank you.
Well, and we work with the health department on those as well.
Okay. Another question is, in regards to COVID testing, are we going to be implementing a COVID testing program in the schools as they're starting to do in other, I know maybe not in our state, but in other states, are we going to be adopting this program or not?
So we looked into it, we looked into COVID testing, it was something that we were very seriously talking about as soon as we came back from the break with the surge that was here. However, since then, the numbers have decreased significantly, so that has helped a lot. Also, in addition to the fact that COVID testing has become widely available outside of the schools, and to be honest with you, right now, where the question really is, who would be doing that COVID testing in the schools? And I think that's the big thing. Well, one, it's costly, but not even because of that, because obviously our students' health is way more important than money, but it's who would be doing the testing in the schools. And right now, you know, nurses have so much on their plate, and we all know there's a shortage of nurses out there, and then bring additional nurses in for it. So there's a lot of logistical things that, listen, when I saw the program you rolled out by the Department of Education, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. But as you start to poke holes through it and ask questions, the first question I asked was, where are the tests coming from? And it's, well, we don't know that piece yet. So, you know, clearly there was a lot of that needed to be done. So there's still a lot of obstacles there, but the good news is that since those obstacles were there, things are getting better and tests are becoming more available.
Great, thank you. In regards to substitute teachers, are we still in a shortage of subs?
We are doing a lot better.
Okay, good.
It was tough the first week. Like I said, when we came back, it was definitely tough. We had a lot of people in quarantine after the holidays, but every single day our numbers are getting better and better and better. So we're in a lot better place, thank God.
Okay, good, because my son was in the cafeteria way too much in the past couple of weeks. My last question is about the testing results. We just got our testing results from the Start Strong. Are we going to, what are we doing with those results? What do these even mean?
February 4th, is that 5th, 3rd? February 3rd? All right, I was just throwing dates out. February 3rd, Thursday night, we're going to have a special board meeting that's just going to be a presentation on our district goal mid-year update, as well as the strong assessments that'll have recommendations in it as well.
Okay. In regards to these scores, do these affect our kids in, I'm thinking no, but in a direct way, because my son's test results, basically he should be in first grade. And he's a high honor student.
So this is the first year we've ever given this assessment. It's basically released questions from former NJSLA tests that they've used to create these very short assessments to try to determine where there could be learning gaps from the prior year. So that's what that is. very hard for us to determine exactly what it means because we have very little context. So we use them really in addition to what we typically use in a school year. So there's no direct, oh my goodness, this child's gonna get this service because of these tests. So we're gonna share out on February 3rd how we did as a whole in the district. Again, we don't know how other districts did, we don't know how the state did. Typically we take our standardized assessments and we compare it to the state of New Jersey, and so we can gauge how we're doing, and we don't have any of that data available.
I will tell you, if you see any of the reports or articles in the paper, the results throughout all of New Jersey were very poor, and I'm sure nationwide, so your son.
I'm just proud that he took the test.
Yeah,
He has super
exactly.
high anxiety over testing, so I'm glad he did it, and I told him, if you have to guess, you guess.
And I think you talked
Thank
to
you.
your child's teacher, and that's really a great gauge of how your child is doing. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Christine.
Thank you, Christine. Any other members of the audience? You seeing none. John, do we have anybody on the telephone?
Is this the second round or?
No, we're going to go these few first and we'll come back.
Okay.
If it's not anybody. Okay,
Google form, nobody, it's been open for like a half hour, 45 minutes, nobody.
okay, Lisa, you're up.
Lisa York, Nottingham Road. After we go to regular board meetings, we were having board meetings in the high school, and then they were moved here. But we know that there was a lot of problems with sound and lighting and everything else, and I was kind of surprised that that didn't show up in any kind of 5-year plan. And I know that I spent 7 years in that particular location, and there's always been problems with the lighting on the stage. So it didn't surprise me when I went to a board meeting and said, wow, there's a problem with the lighting, and it's how many years later? So it's like 33 years later. And I was just hoping that maybe if we kind of brushed it up and put new lighting in there, that we could actually rent the facility out to dance schools, et cetera, so that we can bring in more money. And that's just my recommendation, whatever. Doesn't mean anything, but just not in my past history.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience?
Randa Sarkar, Hamlin Court. I want to express the condolences for our student, high school student. Next, I want to congratulate to all the new board members who are elected. I want to congratulate all our educators has been recognized by the school administration. And I want to thank school district, to putting Diwali on the calendar. So this, and we are also talking about adding Juneteenth as a service day, which is wonderful learning for the student. So I think we are going towards diversity, inclusion. I lived in this town 20 years, like everyone said, and I am seeing that diversity increasing. Different communities are moving. It's completely different, and we are changing, and that we are showing through our calendar. So thank you, and I hope this calendar gets adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the audience?
Hi, Anmol Sharma, 1919 Radman Road. I have a quick two things. First is the vegetarian option for kids, especially in the elementary school. Our kids are like vegetarians, so one of my kids he goes to elementary, and other one is in the TJ. So TJ one is good, like he gets salad and all those things. But for the elementary, it's like there's not much option. Most of the time he has to eat the cold lunch, muffin and all those things.
Can you do me a favor? Could you email us at
I got it.
She will look into it.
Okay, cool, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other one is like.
You don't have to email us too, she's on it, how about that? Make this- She hears, and it's on tape too, so.
Sure, I appreciate that. And the other one is, I don't know, like, especially in the Radman school where my little one goes, in the winter months, right? Every day in the morning, they have to stand in the line, even if it's snowing or in the rain. So is there anything you guys can work with the school or somebody that, they let them in? Like, 10 minutes early or 5 minutes early?
I know that the doors open at a certain time. Obviously, a lot of it has to do with staffing and having the students outside until we're adequately staffed to allow the students to come in. But I know that on certain days, when it's really cold or really inclement weather, we do open the doors and try to get the kids in as quick as possible. But I'll speak with our administration on it and see.
Cool, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, any other members of the audience? Okay, seeing none. Board members, Julie.
Let me get my microphone forward. I did it. So I would like to go back to the conversation of Juneteenth and the current 21-22 calendar. So this coming June, Juneteenth falls on a Saturday, and so the federal holiday is being acknowledged on June 18th. I do realize that this could potentially pose some strategic challenges for our middle and high school because those students may be taking finals exams or end of year exams, but I would like to ask that the administration look into identifying June 18th as a service learning day. June 18th.
June 19th is Sunday.
Friday, June 17th.
Sorry, the June 17th. Either way, it's the Friday prior. I'd like you to consider looking into it, us identifying June 17th, thank you, Vlad, as a service learning day for this school year to see if it could work district-wide. However, regardless, if it cannot work for grades 5 through 12, because they do have end-of-year exams or finals, that it be a learning service day for our elementary schools.
I'll look into it with the administration.
Thank you. I will follow up.
Thank you, Julie. Any other board members? Rita?
So I have a couple of questions. I emailed you, I asked during board meetings twice, and you said yes, that we will make board goals. I emailed you twice, I got no response, so now I'm asking you during the public meeting, will we ever make board goals?
Yes.
When?
I'm not sure.
I don't think that's a very appropriate answer, because I've been asking and you kept saying, the next month, the next month, the next month, and now we don't even answer emails. It doesn't seem right.
All right, okay. I will talk to Nick, and we'll put something together and put together a meeting to have discussion about board goals in February.
And something that I've learned in my trainings, and Mr. Megno may want to jump in, district goals are usually district goals. I know we're asking about board goals. No, I know, I'm talking about district goals first. District goals are set for the academic year, starting in September through June for obvious reasons. Board goals typically are recommended to start now, actually, since we have a new board member, and the election is up, so that board goal can go from January through December. So this is actually an ideal time for the board to take that into consideration and take a look at it in February, like Mr. Banta said. Is that accurate, Mr. Carino?
Yes, yes, it is.
I have a question. Is board goals set by the board or is the superintendent involved in the goals?
They're your goals.
There are goals with the superintendent's involved in
Wait, I thought
making.
it was our goals.
It is,
Well,
but,
the superintendent's a member of the board.
yes.
Okay. Okay, next thing is, are we going to have any work sessions this year?
At this time, there's no work session scheduled. We're working on the committee.
I'm sure there will be topics that'll need to be discussed, but at this given second, I can't tell you that, but I'm sure there will be work sessions. because I'm sure we have some heavy topics that will be coming up, but at this moment, at this second, I can't tell you exactly when or where, but yeah, I'm sure there will be.
Okay, since we have several new people, board members in the past couple of years, and I've been expressing that it's good for people to move around. I think committees need to have whoever wants, not everybody wants, but there should be any board member who wants to be a chair of a committee should be part of a committee. I think it will give new board members a way to learn how to become when the veteran board members decide to retire. It's not going to be like, oh my God, what a great learning curve, we have no idea. You can't use your knowledge from the veterans, how to do it properly. So I was wondering if you could please allow all, new board members, meaning anybody with at least 1 year, so the first year is hard, to be the president of a committee, so they learn how to do this properly.
Well, the committees are done. Mike and I did them. They'll be going out tomorrow. And in all the years I've been on the board, I don't think we've ever had a first-term board member be chair of a committee. Because there has to be, some experience in being on the board and having actually served on a committee before you can actually chair one. So certainly we can revisit it next year when we do the committees again, who's ever president. But as for right now, the new board members in their first term have not been customarily chairs of committees. It's Mark and then.
Okay. So on January 5th, on January 2nd, I emailed the superintendent and Mr. Bonta to ask them to be able to call in how other board members were allowed to call in previously, because I had a problem at home. And first I was emailed saying, why? And 2 days later they say, no, you cannot do this. This is my rule. I thought as a board, we make the rules, not a president makes the rules for all of us. I think we should be voting if we're going to be able to call in, or we can't call in, but I don't think the president should be able to make a choice for us, because then nobody will ever be able to call in. Nobody can go on vacation, because if you have more than 2 board meetings in a month, then you're done. Is that correct, Board President? You're not allowed to call in ever, no one?
As of right now, the board, and we haven't had a formal vote on it, but my recollection was that the majority of the board felt that if you're a board member, you should actually be at the meeting as opposed to calling in. Now, there's no formal vote taken, but we did have a discussion, and at this time, I'm going by the sense of the board that board members should come to the meetings. So,
Can we schedule a formal vote so that we can make sure that everybody's opinion will be heard?
well, we can put it on the work session.
Okay, but you said you're never going to have work sessions.
Well, Nick said Nick said we were going to have them, he was going to come here, when we have something to discuss in a work session, we'll put that on.
Is there a way we can put it on the February meeting and then just vote on how people feel about it, and you don't have to wait like 10 months for this? Is that fair?
A public board meeting is not to discuss issues that have to do with just the board, that are going to take an hour or an hour and a half, which I'm sure it will, while the public watches. So, no, it's not going to be on February's public meeting, no.
But at committee meeting, also people watch. What's the difference?
I don't understand the question.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, if I may, for a second, this was discussed at length at a policy meeting, and majority of the board did not want that. And I remember there was conversations about how many absences in a row, and what would be want to do it. So this was discussed at length, and it was majority of the board. With that being said, I don't want to go back and forth. It's getting actually kind of late. I don't mind. I'll stay here all night. My kids are sleeping already. But with that being said, this is a conversation that probably should happen at a policy meeting if you want to revisit that policy, because there is a policy about board member participation. So I don't know that it's a work session. I don't know that we just throw it on an agenda. My recommendation would be to kick it back to a policy meeting, even though this conversation is
Well, let's take a look and see, when was the last time we discussed it, and what was the policy that we left with?
high school.
November of last year.
Yeah, it was when we discussed phone, members of the public calling in.
Okay, so we just discussed the policy in November, we just rewrote it. I don't see any reason to rewrite it three months later.
I'm not asking, this is for the public, we never did it for the board. Is there a way we can put it on the next policy meeting so that we have it in black and white so that everybody is on board with everything?
Next policy meeting, well, let me think about it. I don't want to tell you I'm going to do something when we're not. But if we just discuss it in November, I don't see why we're discussing it again 3 months later. I just
I'm
don't see
asking for a vote,
why we're
I'm
going
not
around.
asking for a discussion, I'm asking for a vote to vote yes or no.
Okay, I vote. All right, you said your piece, I said mine. Let's move on.
Okay.
Whatever other items you have.
Okay, so my question is for Mr. Garcia. How are we preparing our students for the New Jersey GPA, which is the 11th grade assessment that counts for graduation this year?
Dr. McAteer, do you know what she's referring to at this point?
Yeah, there's a new grade 11 graduation requirement for our students, and our curriculum addresses the skills and knowledge that the students need to be able to pass that exam.
Are we doing
And,
any
you know-
extra practice, anything else? Because we've been
Our
remote for 2
curriculum-
years. It's good to have a more practice test prep.
Rita, why don't you let her answer the question?
Right now, my answer is that our curriculum addresses the skills and knowledge that our students need, and that's what we are doing at this point.
And we'll,
And we are just learning about this test this year. There's not a great deal of information. So we're working with our students
But-
in our classes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Does the district have any enrichment after-school programs for the elementary school? Are they starting to do any progress? For example, art after-school program, music after-school program, coding after-school program from elementary school? Why I'm asking is there are a lot of districts in New Jersey that do that. And I was wondering if there's any progress for it, or if there is not, is there a reason why the district would not want to do this? Can you please explain?
Yeah, we do have a lot of great programs that we offer through our community school, as well as, we do a lot with our aftercare students that are here. Our teachers are always available, and we go above and beyond for our students. So, at this time, I think we offer a lot, specifically coding and things like that. I can't speak to that right now at this moment. I wasn't prepared to speak to that at this moment, but I think we do a lot for our students.
You refer to community school. Community school, you have to pay for it. Aftercare, you have to pay for it. I'm talking about providing enrichment for students that maybe their parents don't have the money to be able to afford
Well,
enrichment.
then what I would recommend that maybe we kick this to an education committee, and then we can have the conversation there.
I've been asking for SATs to be discussed in the education committee for a year, and that was ignored.
And all due respect, Rita, we discussed it when we discussed tutor.com, and we're coming back to it right now, doing the same dance we do at every board meeting, Rita. So, I respectfully will kick this back to the education committee where it belongs. Thank you.
Okay, how about SAT classes?
It's the same thing I'm going to kick back to the education committee because we have this same conversation every month.
Just a point of information, there is somebody just posted that they're offering free SAT preparation in fail one, and actually at the Bridgewood Library, where my daughter works, they actually have classes left for free. And actually, my daughter told me in the community, the co-op library program in Bergen County, there's numerous libraries in all different towns that offer for free. Don't look at me like that, my daughter told me she works at the Bridgewood Library, so I'm just saying, because I've heard it.
This is the first time I've heard it. Maybe the district can post it on their website or
Well,
more
I'm saying,
students,
no,
because I didn't hear it.
I don't want to go back and forth with this.
I'm not going back.
No,
On Facebook, somebody just posted that.
Okay, no, I understand that. Now she's, okay.
Thank you. I'm done.
Thank
For
you.
now.
All right, Mark and then we'll add.
I think we all need to take a deep breath before we resume. Last month, I briefly spoke about my concerns about the committee structure versus the committee of the whole structure. And we really didn't get into any further discussion on it, other than my broaching the topic. So, is there any way, I know that we were just speaking about Nick putting something on a work session, and we didn't have enough items to place on there. Can we place that particular topic so we can discuss whether or not we're going to go forward with the committees? as they are, or if we can go with a committee of the whole structure. My reasoning for this is because I really feel that when you have a committee structure, those who are not part of that committee really do not have the opportunity to get the fullness of the conversation. They're not able to ask questions that are popping up as the committee is meeting, and they're basically left out if they're not part of that, to just go along with the consensus of those members on that particular committee. When you have a committee of the whole structure, everybody is there. I know it may take another night or two of us meeting together, but I think we're going to be more informed by having that committee of the whole structure where everybody is present. Everybody can ask the questions and everybody can get the full flavor of what's being discussed, So can we put that on a work session agenda is my question.
Well, I think it would be policy, because we have a policy about committees, so I think it would be a policy meeting we'd have to put it on. And since it keeps coming up, next policy meeting, we'll put it on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, what?
Exhale.
Just a fact check. A few years ago, when the board had many different committees, then everybody was the chair of a committee, including people who were just elected.
Say that again?
Okay, again. Just a fact check that a number of years ago, when the board had many different committees, at that time, every board member was a chair of a committee, even including people who were just elected.
I don't think that's correct.
Mike, may I ask you to comment on this?
What do you want to know?
No, it's not a question. It's a statement that this was the case.
Okay. Any other board members haven't spoken? Okay, Rita.
Since this is the case, what Mr. Itkin says, why can't we implement this case? Do we have to vote as a board for everybody, and everybody who wants to be a chair person can be a chairperson of a committee? Because there were several ideas last year that Mr. Santana and I brought up to when you were the chair of the committee and you didn't like the idea, and you just said, no, thank you, we're not going to hear that idea.
First of all, that's incorrect. Second of all, anybody who sent me an agenda item, I spoke to the rest of the committee. And if the majority of the committee wanted to discuss it, we discussed it. If the majority of the committee didn't want to discuss it, we didn't want to discuss it. So that happened more than once, that somebody would come to me or another chairperson and say, I'd like to speak about A and B, and the chairperson would ask the committee, do you want to discuss this? And the committee would say, yeah, or nay. Sometimes it got on, sometimes it didn't. So it's a democracy on the committees. You got 3 people on the committee. If 2 people don't want to hear it, it doesn't go on.
I respectfully disagree. I would like for us to try something new because we're not functioning well as a board, and I would like us to do something different. And one thing is for at least everyone to be a chair who wants to be a chair of a committee. And new people be different in different committees, not everybody in the same committee every year. So that there will be a rotation, everybody gets to try a different committee, everybody sees a different part of how the board works. I feel like every year, as I look for the past couple of years, the same people are the chairs of the same committee, the same people are in the same committee, and there's nothing that, my committee last year that I was put on, met once, and another committee was met twice the entire year. And therefore,
Depends on the committee. I mean,
Oh,
the
that's
board
why I
or
would like
liaison
to-
committee meets when we meet with the board.
that's why
So-
if you could put us on different committees so that everybody has a chance to see different parts of how the board.
Well, that'll be part of our discussion when we do the policy.
But you said the committees are already made. Once
Yes,
they're-
they are.
Once they're made, we can
Right,
change
so
them.
we're not going to change it this year, but for next year.
Is there a reason you are so disrespectful to me, Mr.
I'm answering your questions.
If you rewatch the video of this conversation, you could see how
Ms.
disrespectful you are towards me.
Can
And
I
I'm
just
sorry,
ask-
I've been trying very hard, I'm talking, and then when I talk, I'll talk, and when you talk, please, I've been trying so hard to discuss something, and every time I email you about committees, I was ignored. Every time I ask about being chairs of committees, you kind of ignore me. When I ask for a work session, you said whenever I want. I think it's very disrespectful for you speaking to me.
All right, duly noted.
According to current policy, I think it's 0155, I'm not exactly sure what the number is. Policy titled committees. The board has like 20 different committees. And at some point in time, this policy was actually correct. The board did have like 20 committees. That was some number of years ago. And at that time, every board member was the chair of a committee.
Okay, I don't think that's correct, but, you know, we can disagree to disagree. I don't think every board member was the chair of a committee. At some point in time, maybe, you know, it just happened to fall that way, but there are times where committees, I mean, some people, I got the committee list, some people ask for one committee. So what am I supposed to do with that? Some people want to be chair of the 3 biggest committees. I can't make one person chair of the 3 largest committees. So, you know, there's a certain amount of equity, there's also a certain amount of experience you have to take into account when you're picking committee chairs. You can't just say, okay, somebody, all right, I'm going to put Joe on the committee on our finance committee. He just got elected. And it just doesn't work. You have to have some experience. You have to have some ability to know what's happening in the district before you can be a chair of a committee.
Can I just jump in?
I'm
for-
just expressing historical facts, but which we probably disagree. That's
Okay.
it.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Yes.
It's, Mr. Banta had said that he would be sending home the committee assignments tomorrow. We also said that we would be discussing this in policy because it is a committee policy. I think at this point we are beating a dead horse going round and round.
Okay. Any board member hasn't spoken? Okay, so when's the next public meeting?
February 28th.
February 28th, public meeting.
Oh, no, well, actually, I scratch that. We have February 3rd is the mid-year district goal update,
Okay.
as well as the Start Strong assessment, and then our regular monthly meetings.
Okay. And then we'll announce when we're gonna have the policy meeting. And budget meetings coming up too, so. Can I have a motion to recess into closed session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Yeah, take a break.